Staff report, and Joel Benton, our county counsel, will be delivering that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to briefly go over sort of the scope of the hearing and then give a brief presentation on a memo that the board had asked me to draft and has subsequently made public on the county's website. Today, the Board of Commissioners noticed a public hearing for the purpose of taking public testimony related to the restrictions on the OHA sector risk level guidance chart that was effective February 12th, 2021 for the following activities: social and at-home gathering sizes, indoor and outdoor, eating and drinking establishments, indoor recreation and fitness establishments, indoor entertainment establishments, retail stores, indoor and outdoor shopping centers / malls, faith institutions, funeral homes, mortuaries, cemeteries, offices, outdoor recreation and fitness establishments, outdoor entertainment establishments, personal services, and long-term care. As such, all comments should be related to the topics for which this public hearing was noticed during the public testimony portion. Turning to the memo, the board has been approached by several people and concerned citizens regarding the county potentially taking action under our home rule charter or otherwise to lessen restrictions or to prohibit the enforcement of restrictions that have been imposed by the governor by executive order or by one of the state agencies. And so the board asked me to take a look at, do we have the ability under our home rule charter to make tangible differences in what those restrictions are in our county. And so what I did is I did take a look. I looked at our home rule charter and I took a look at the scope of what the home rule authority was, and then I applied that to this particular situation. If the public is interested who's watching this, a copy of the opinion the board has made publicly available on the county's website on the COVID-19 response page. In summary, I just don't believe that it is my opinion that the home rule charter does not give the county the authority or the board the authority to take actual effective action to really reduce the restrictions or eliminate the restrictions enacted by the state or the state agencies, or to prohibit the state from enforcing those restrictions in the county. As a brief summary, the home rule charter provides, which was enacted pursuant to the Oregon Constitution, provides the county with authority over matters of county concern. That's a very broad and ambiguous term that's not defined in the Constitution and it's not defined in statute. So we have to take a look at what the courts have said and sort of interpreted what matters of county concern means and what that is the scope of our authority. And so the courts tend to look at decisions and decide if something is outside the scope as opposed to if something is inside the scope. So the vast majority of court decisions related to this phrase are about where that phrase exceeds the county authority, where a county action has exceeded the scope of authority over matters of county concern. And so the first sort of set of limitations is the county has no authority over matter which are not a county concern, which makes sense. And then the second is the county's authority over matters of county concern are still subject to affirmative preemption by state or federal law. So the county's authority and actions taken under that authority can't conflict where state law or federal law has preempted the county's authority to do so. So where we look at things that are just not matters of county concern, that is directing officers, employees of another government body to tell them what to do. We as a county don't have the ability to tell state agents and state officers and state employees or city employees or city officers what to do. We only have authority over county resources. And we don't have the ability to tell other governmental bodies to regulate how they operate. A good example of a court case was there was a decision out of, I believe, Multnomah County that attempted to tell the district court how it was going to operate. And the Oregon courts basically said that is outside the scope of the authority of the county. Even though the district court or the circuit court is operating in your county, that doesn't give you authority over it. And then, so that is one of the main limitations when it comes to the ability of the county to make affirmative changes is that we can't tell other entities or the employees of other entities what they're doing or what their jobs are. And then secondly, we're not allowed to, under our authority, we don't have authority if the state has preempted our authority and taken taken jurisdiction over the matter as a matter of statewide concern. And so as applied to this particular case, we take a look at Right now, the county has not enacted any COVID-19 restrictions that are applicable to businesses or citizens in the county. The county's actions related to COVID-19 that we have taken, which are also available, and I think the board may discuss briefly, are more about county operations in response to the COVID-19. We've not enacted any restrictions. The only restrictions that are really applicable to the citizens and business in the county either come by a governor executive order or by authority she has delegated to OHA to adopt some restrictions, or under OHA when it comes to their authority to regulate employee safety in the workplace. And so as such, those are, my opinion would be a court would determine that those were outside matters of county concern because those are actions taken by different government entities. And similarly, enforcement of those are going to be by members of their officers and their employees, not our officers' employees. And so I don't believe the county would have the authority to tell OSHA employees they can't operate OSHA, enforce OSHA restrictions in our county, nor do I believe we could tell OSHA that they don't have authority in our county. That would be outside a matter of county concern. But we actually look at, and I think that the county's authority over states of emergency are affirmatively preempted by the governor's authority when it comes to when she does actions when it relates to states of emergency. If we look at Chapter 401, which is the authority of the county to declare a local state of emergency, our authority specifically has the restriction that actions taken by the governor we can't conflict with actions taken by the governor, and that's in Chapter 401 of ORS. So I think if we look at sort of what can the county do when it comes to the restrictions that the state has imposed, I think our authority is both preempted in two ways. One, we just don't have authority over it because it's not a matter of county concern. And then second, state law specifically provides that we can't conflict, and the governor's authority in a state of emergency preempts our authority.
Thank you. We do appreciate the extensive research and the thorough explanation of that, Joel. A lot of work there, sure. Okay, anything else for staff report from County Council before we move on?
No, Mr. Chair.
We'll move on then into commissioner comments, and I'll ask the commissioners, do they have any general comments before we begin this hearing? Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I look forward to hearing this testimony, and that's what this is all about. This is about listening and intake for us, and I think that's very important. Like I say, I look forward to it.
And I do too. I think the voice of the people, we've all received a lot of written comment, and I'm so grateful people take the time to do that. I think it will help either formulate or empower our message, which is what we hope to use this, like we did with the testimony we took on the expansion of the monument. And I just think the voice of the people, whatever, agree with the restrictions, disagree with the restrictions, are very valuable to our job as commissioners and leadership, and are important to how we proceed. And I know a lot of our people come to our Wednesday meeting and they're like, how can we meet with all three of you at once? And this is that opportunity on this specific issue. So I appreciate the staff putting all this together within just a few days' notice, and look forward to see how it goes online. This is kind of different. So thanks to staff, thanks to everybody that's involved in this, and the citizens that are so affected one way or another, and we all are, and it is our voices that'll be heard through this.
Yeah, we're finding out every time we do a Zoom meeting, the challenges of being online, but we overcome them. And yeah, this opportunity here, since the pandemic began, since different policies that have come down from Salem have affected us all in different ways, and we've taken comments and via phone call, email, personal visits with folks all over the county, and we always want to hear their concerns. This is going to give those folks an opportunity to, again, air their concerns, but we are going to create the record that will then be sent to the policymakers in Salem. Our, I believe, goal since this began is to take all of the input we can and to look at how restrictions affect everyone in Southern Oregon, and try to do what we can to advocate for a more balanced policy, a policy that works for everyone, a policy that balances all interests. And public health, certainly one of those that we keep top of mind, how it affects businesses, how it affects individuals, how it affects kids in school or that weren't in school. There are other extracurricular endeavors. There were a lot of interests at stake, and our attempts have always been to try to balance those interests and help mold and shape and advocate for policy that does balance those interests. And that's always been our first and foremost goal and kind of mission as we move through this. And there's archive of all of the letters that have been sent advocating for certain policy changes in some cases, just efforts to, again, achieve that balanced policy. Those are archived on the Jackson County website under the commissioners page. People can access those and see what's been done pretty consistently over the entire duration of this pandemic. What I'd like to do real quick, and then we'll get started. I just want to read our most recent letter that went out the other day to the governor. And again, this is an effort to achieve a more balanced policy that can work, that can protect public health, that can also protect those business interests that are really the ones being extremely detrimentally affected by this. And again, as an attempt to try to balance that and have both of those policy objectives addressed, but do it in a more balanced way. So this was sent February 23rd to Office of the Honorable Kate Brown, and it's a request for evaluation of the current COVID-19 risk level indicators. Dear Governor Brown, as COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations continue to drop statewide, including in Jackson County, we are requesting a vigorous and immediate evaluation of the current risk level indicators. In Jackson County, the total number of positive COVID-19 cases reported for the week of December 6, 2020 was 706 and was down to 290 for the week of January 31st, 2021. During that same time frame, hospitalizations of suspected or confirmed COVID-19 patients in all of Region 5, which encompasses Jackson and Josephine counties, dropped from 85 patients suspected or confirmed in hospitals in Region 5 to just 16 on February 11th, 2021, 85 on December 19th. Despite these precipitous drops, our county risk level remains the same. This was prior to us dropping to the high level, as do the burdens placed on our business. As you previously recognized, these restrictions are frustrating and devastating to small businesses and are dramatically impacting local economies. In addition to the current reduction of COVID-19 cases and hospitalizations in our community, vulnerable populations are being vaccinated, further helping to reduce the risk of transmission. With these inoculations, a substantial percentage of the risk of severe illness, hospitalizations, and deaths relating to COVID-19 have been mitigated. And the reason is, of course, the first to be inoculated were a lot of the congregate care patients, the folks that were experiencing, in most cases, the most severe illnesses, more prevalent hospitalizations, and of course, death. And we thankfully have mitigated those risks with the first rounds of inoculations to those populations. The state of Oregon Health Authority, relies on science and data to inform guidance to reduce the risk of COVID-19 spread in our communities. As such, we are collectively requesting a vigorous evaluation of current risk level indicators utilizing the data that is available, as has been done for other activities. Our community members have worked together to reduce the spread of COVID-19 and related hospitalizations. Some examples on how to achieve this necessary balance in policy would be a shift in metrics determining county risk levels to reflect the number of cases per 100,000 population in the extreme, high, moderate, and low risk categories to greater than 350 for extreme, 200 to less than 350 for high, 100 to less than 200 for moderate, and less than 100 for low. or by eliminating the extreme risk category restrictions and shifting the lesser restrictions up one category across the board. Thank you for your time and consideration of this important matter. Sincerely signed, the commissioners. Wanted to read, that's just the most recent one. Obviously, there's been probably dozens of letters, again, trying to achieve more balanced policy. So moving on, this hearing, obviously through Zoom, is your opportunity to submit your testimony directly to the commissioners. If you'd like to just view the hearing and not give input, it is being carried on our county's YouTube page, which is listed on the agenda, and you can find that on YouTube. So before we start, or actually I will open the public hearing and get back to my agenda here.
Mr. Chair, this is Joel. May I read the rules of the public hearing before we bring in the first speaker?
Please. And I have another announcement before we do as well, but please do.
Sure. So pursuant to the codified ordinances of Jackson County, section 213.07, the rules for the conduct of this public hearing are as follows. Only the chairperson or a member of the Board of Commissioners may question a speaker. There will be no interruption of a speaker from the audience and no debates on the floor. Applause is not permitted. A speaker may criticize a proposal, the board, or an agency of the county, but the speaker shall not argue with another speaker directly. Any speaker may present an opposite view, but not in personal terms. A person wishing to speak shall be recognized by the chair conducting the hearing prior to speaking. After being recognized, the speaker shall state his or her name and address before proceeding with his or her statement. The chairperson may limit the duration of any presentation to the time necessary to cover factual information. Repetition by a speaker shall be avoided. We are making a verbatim recording of the hearing and it may be transcribed. Therefore, we request that when anyone speaks, we do reiterate that they begin by identifying themselves so that anyone reading the transcript of the record will know who is speaking. Oral testimony during this hearing is limited to 2 minutes per person. Written testimony and comments may also be submitted by mail or email to the addresses identified in the public hearing notice. That ends the rules of the hearing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I am going to, again, reiterate the parameters of the comments we're receiving today in this hearing. And public comment will be received on the impacts to the citizens and businesses of Jackson County from the restrictions imposed by the governor and the Oregon Health Authority's sector level guidance. Comment will be received specifically on the restrictions listed on the OHA sector risk level guidance chart effective February 12th, 2021 for the following activities: social and at-home gathering size, indoor and outdoor eating and drinking establishments, indoor recreation and fitness establishments, indoor entertainment establishments, retail stores, indoor and outdoor shopping centers and malls, faith institutions, funeral homes, mortuaries, cemeteries, offices, outdoor recreation and fitness establishments, outdoor entertainment establishments, personal services, and long-term care. And again, before I bring in the first speaker, I want to, just a couple things that we have to make sure that we are attentive to. For one, please first give your name and address for the record. It's important as we compile this record and send it to the appropriate policymakers that we do have names and addresses for all of those giving testimony. Please state whether you are supporting, opposing, or are neutral to the restrictions. And there will be a 2-minute time limit, which is very strict. We need to be consistent and we need to move through this. So at 2 minutes exactly, your feed will be cut. So what I will do, I'm not going to verbally interrupt you, but at 15 seconds remaining, I'm going to put my hand up indicating you need to wrap up with it within 15 seconds or the feed will be cut. If you don't get all of what you wanted to say in verbally, orally, you can, we'll accept written testimony until 5 o'clock on Monday. And again, I want to remind, we keep these comments on topic. If your point has already been made by a previous speaker. You can choose to not give your testimony. We don't need repetition. It's not necessarily helpful. And please, no personal attacks either. So we will bring in the first speaker. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm presuming that I'm the first speaker, and my name is Jeannie Schwar, JeanneChouard. My address is 1178 Hillview Drive in Ashland, Oregon. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking the county staff who's been working so hard to get this virus under control, particularly the staff who worked hard to get the mass vaccination sites at the expo up and running. I'm here today as an educator. I work with young children who experience disabilities in preschool classrooms, and I'm excited to be able to go back to provide in-person services. But I'm only able to do that because we've made progress as a state in controlling this virus. And we've made progress as a state in controlling the virus because of the strong actions that our governor has taken. Although we've made progress, there still is a risk of community spread. I know that each of you commissioners have expressed very much concern in getting our kids back into classes. And I think we all have common ground there, is that we need to have our kids in school. Kids need opportunities to participate in sports and other extracurricular activities. But we can only continue to provide those opportunities for our children if we keep a handle on community spread. So therefore, I urge you not to continue to undermine Governor Brown's policies, but to work with the state and support these restrictions we have in place. It's working. Let's continue.
Thank you. Can I request, as we're waiting for the next speaker, for the timekeeper to wait to start the time until after the name and address has been stated? I think that gives them the full benefit of their time.
Am I in?
You are.
Okay, great. My name is Lyriel Zarafin. I'm in Ashland, Oregon, 258 A Street. And I'm talking to oppose the restrictions. One of my income streams has been in the wedding industry, which has been one of the most extremely impacted industries by the pandemic and the COVID restrictions. I have worked both as an officiant, an interfaith minister and wedding officiant, and also as a wedding singer. And pretty much 2020, that of course, with all of the bans on indoor gatherings and the rolling restrictions, opening, not opening, pretty much decimated that portion of my business. Little bit, I mean, the movement in the industry has been toward, basically people have been postponing, canceling, rescheduling, and the few people who have gone ahead have moved to small, intimate gatherings pretty much at home, live stream. You know, people have tried different things in different parts of the country, but Oregon has been particularly bad hit. About 71%. There was a survey of other wedding planners in the industry in Oregon, and according to those stats where people were interviewed, and about 71% business gone, like all those weddings were canceled. So, and the little bit that has been occurring are the small in-person gatherings. Weddings take time to plan. Often that's months, years. You can't really plan if you don't know how many gatherings, you know, are going to be allowed, how many people in an indoor space. And then there's the problem of the wedding industry falls between many different categories: entertainment, churches, and indoor dining. So all of those have been hard hit, and of course performers, well as.
Sorry that we do have to cut people off mid-sentence. I'm trying to give that 15-second warning, but again, to remain consistent, we are cutting it off at 2 minutes.
John, you're next, I guess.
Thank you, commissioners, for the opportunity to focus on this important issue. My name is John Hamilton. I live in Ashland, Oregon at 1217 Park Street. I am retired. It is imperative that the county supports science, medical experts, and the governor's strong action here. The relaxation of restrictions this week is evidence that that approach is working. We need to be doing everything possible to minimize the spread of this virus. Support for mask wearing, hand washing, social distancing, and vaccination. We can have both a thriving economy and healthy population, but unless we're on the same page with this, we're going to be in the same boat a year from now. I am asking the commission to support science, facts, health experts, and the governor. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
I guess I'm on now.
Yes.
I'm thank you very much for letting us testify. This is a very important issue. I'm Dave Gilmore, GILMOUR, 445 Manzanita, Central Point. I'm a retired physician, former Jackson County health officer. I was health officer from 1987 until 2002, and I became commissioner. This epidemic has really had a terrible impact on all of us. We've had over 8,200 cases, 110 deaths. I mean, to put that in perspective, that's more deaths than we get an average year from opioid overdoses and suicides together. I mean, that's a huge number, had a terrible impact. But the restrictions that we've had up to now and the public's compliance with mask wearing and social distances has kept the deaths down. If we did not have them, we'd be at the level we had in the 1918 epidemic, where we probably have on a per capita basis a whole lot more deaths. We probably would have 500-600 deaths in our county by now, rather than 110. So it's had a terrible impact. And I would urge you just to continue the course that we're doing now. The reason being that even though it's a terrible economic impact, it's having the effect that we want. And we've already gone down one level, which is important. Actually, my wife and I are going to a cabaret theater this weekend, a matinee, because it's actually open because we changed categories. And we look forward to the time that we'd be able to go to concerts and plays and be able to go to mass events at Expo and so on. But that can only happen if we stay the course. We don't want to reverse, even though there's the tremendous force to do that. And we all want to have the restrictions lifted. But if we do it too quickly, we'll be in trouble. So I urge you to keep the course, and thank you.
Thank you. Hello, you are on.
All right. My name is Catherine Shields. I live at 54 Gresham Street in Ashland. There is an overload of Ashland people here today, not surprising. And I just really speaking mostly from my own personal concerns here. I support the state guidelines, just as I support the national guidelines. When you're my age, 76, you have a lot of health concerns and concerns about your family as well. I feel like we have finally in February hit, 1 million shots a day being administered, something that we tried, that we've looked forward to since last year, almost a full year ago. And that even though the US has 4% of the world's population, we have 20% of the deaths. And I feel very confident that it is the efforts of the federal government and Dr. Fauci now, as well as our state guidelines that have helped achieve this. And Lord knows I've been as frustrated as anyone trying to get my appointment right for my first vaccine, which I now have, and which I really had within 2 weeks of when it was promised. So I do feel like things are definitely going in a more positive direction with this. I'm glad to see that at the federal level, there's now a kind of splitting off of attention towards small business people instead of lumping them with people who have, a lot of people working for them. And I feel like we're on a track that's going to be good for us. And that, as everyone else has said, we need to stay the course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I just want to mention, if anybody does get caught off mid-sentence, they can supplement with a written testimony for the record, just so it's not left off cold.
Right. Yeah, I mentioned that at the beginning. I probably will have to reiterate it as we go more. You're right. It's important to know. A little trouble bringing this one in, it looks like.
Mr. Chair, he's been brought in and I'm asking him to unmute and it doesn't seem to be working on his end. I'm not quite sure.
More joys of Zoom, but we'll get you in.
Would you like me to move him back as an attendee and try again after the next speaker?
Oh, Alicia, you're very faint too. We can't hear you very well.
Sorry about that, Mr. Chair. My microphone was down. Would you like me to move him back as an attendee and move to the next speaker?
Yeah, and we'll try to bring him back in later.
Sure.
There we are.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes. Good morning.
I am David Sowers, S-O-U-R-S, 225 Graham Street, Jacksonville. Thank you, commissioners, for giving your constituents this opportunity to be heard. You're in a difficult position balancing the public health with the economy when both are in crisis, and it's a thankless task. I'm here to support the OHA guidelines. They are a high bar, but this plan does provide explicit criteria on how to reopen safely. Now, people can disagree with this plan all they want, but at least the governor does have a plan. And she follows a pretty rigorous process from what I can tell. She monitors the scientific research, tracks the data, meets regularly with a team of experts. And the plan is out there for the public to see and discuss and debate. I know that you have expressed disagreement with the plan on numerous occasions. I like the tone of your February 23rd letter, and what you suggested sounds worthy of discussion, at least to me. But while they may be reasonable to me just superficially, they have no context for me, and I'm only concerned that they might merely be ways to please certain constituencies. I'd be more convinced to support your efforts if you accompanied those suggestions with strong statements affirming public health protocols, even as we reopen. I'd like our commissioners to model these behaviors without apology so that reopening can happen safely. So please, no more lukewarm support for public health. In conclusion, I support the OHA guidelines, though I'm open to modifications that don't compromise safety, and if all our leaders get behind the safety protocols. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Morning.
Good morning. My name is Alan Journey. I live at 7113 in Jacksonville. Thank you for providing this opportunity for public comment on the Oregon Health Authority's sector risk level guidance chart. Last year, the governor of Kansas issued an executive order requiring wearing masks in public spaces, effective July 3rd. Unfortunately for Kansans, she allowed counties to opt out. After that date, COVID-19 incidents decreased in 24 counties accepting mask mandates, but continued to increase in 81 counties refusing mask mandates. Why was that, I wonder? The evidence should be clear. Following the recommendations of medical science saves lives. For months, Governor Brown, together with state agencies and departments, has been trying to apply the best available medical advice to save lives of Oregonians. Medical advice tells us that social distancing, masks, frequent hand washing, and restricting the size of gatherings all contribute to reducing the risk of spreading disease. As inconvenient as the restrictions might be, they represent a common sense response to the medical crisis we all face. The appalling loss of life could have been prevented if only medical advice had been followed across the country. Rather than consistently trying to undermine sane policies to protect the lives of Jackson County residents, members of the Jackson County Board of Commission would serve the community better if you were to embrace, promote, and model these policies. Difficult and inconvenient as it may be, we are all in this together and need to follow best medical advice. We are not out of the woods yet and will not be for some months. I support the OHA guidelines. Thank you very much.
Morning.
Good morning. I'm Lori Hoagland, 1217 Park Street, Ashland, Oregon. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. I am a family nurse practitioner, and I'm here as a representative of my employer, La Clinica, which serves about 30,000 Jackson County residents and has been on the front lines of the COVID-19 pandemic since March 2020. We support the governor's guidelines. We know that COVID-19 restrictions have created hardships and that many parts of our community, including businesses, children, and education, have been dramatically impacted. We will never underestimate these effects. We experience them every day. As frontline healthcare workers, we also experience daily the dramatic health impacts of the pandemic as we care for COVID patients and attempt to keep others safe from getting the virus. More than 8,000 Jackson County residents have been diagnosed with COVID-19, a virus which leaves some of them with lingering health concerns for many months. More than 100 have died in our county as a result of the virus, and while these numbers are small compared to those of larger areas, they are nevertheless deeply significant to every person and family affected and our community as a whole. So we ask our policymakers to allow time for COVID-19 vaccinations to take hold and save lives. We ask that the focus on masking, hand washing, social distancing, and vaccination continue for now. This approach is enabling our community to gain ground on the virus and led to the governor's decision to relax restrictions this week. We all need to rise to the task of being heroes in this pandemic. No single group can accomplish this task without cooperation and support from all of us. The question is not whether our county will return to normal. We know it will. The question is when. We urge Jackson County to look to the science as a guide to next steps, and we believe it is possible to find the.
And again, if there was additional testimony, written testimony will be accepted until 5 o'clock on Monday.
Mr. Chair, it appears that Mr. Chase is not able to unmute. I've asked him to again.
Well, again, we will continue to try if he can figure out the technical difficulty there. We'd love to have him give his testimony. Oh, there we go. Looks like he's unmuted.
Am I on now?
Yes, we can hear you. Great.
Oh, good heavens. Well, I've also had an electrician at the door just this moment, so and he could return at any moment. Goodness, have very little prepared remarks, but I stand in favor, and I really want to endorse the preceding remarks because.
Mr. Chase, can I interrupt you and just have you just give your name and address for the record before going into your actual testimony,
James
please?
Chase, POB 397, Phoenix, Oregon, 97535.
Thank you very much.
Good, and thanks for reminding me. I do still stand in favor of the governor and the national federal guidelines because I guess I can remember my parents were children of the Depression and survivors, or my dad went to World War II and my mother worked in the YWCA in the home. Oh, good heavens. So I'm going to take an incoming call from probably the electrician and stand in favor. I'll yield the rest of my time. Thank you much.
Thank you. Well, at least you got most of it in. That was a triumph. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Daniel Tharp. I live in Central Point, and I apologize as I missed the the section discussing how to provide commentary or what information you might need, but I'm a long-term resident of Central Point, would like to provide some commentary. I don't have any prepared remarks, so I'm going to throw them off the cuff. I am a classified worker at Southern Oregon University, but I come here today to provide testimony on my own behalf. I stand in favor of the guidelines laid out by Governor Brown to ensure effective public health guidelines. I know it's been difficult. I know it's been exceedingly difficult for local businesses, but I stand for especially those who would be required to expose themselves to a virus when they yet do not have access to a vaccine, specifically those working in the restaurant industry and the other industries that require close personal contact. If we were to try and reduce the standards that have basically been set up, I don't think it should be a surprise to anyone that Oregon has done it right. We have one of the lowest case counts in the country. We have one of the lowest death rates in the country. The other thing I want to note is a lot of people, especially like the statement given out in Douglas County by their council, that the guidelines don't seem to be effective because none of the cases appear to be coming out of the places that are closed down. I would note in Jackson County, our current rate of untraceable cases was 52%. Last I checked, I believe that was last week, which means 52% couldn't be attributed to a specific area, which means over half of our cases are coming from places we don't know, out in the community where that might be. So I stand with the governor, and I hope that you'll take my words into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, all of those present, everyone that has registered to speak has spoken.
Great, thank you. So there are no additional speakers waiting, or just hadn't been pre-registered?
Not that have registered with their option to provide testimony, which was part of the registration process. They were asked if they would like to provide testimony, and of those that are present, they all have spoken.
So now we're taking general statements from those waiting. I want to make sure I understand the process as you're explaining it.
That would be up to you, Mr. Chair. On the registration process, each person was asked if they would like to speak. So
yes,
if you
of
would
course.
like to have people.
We would bring in anybody who wishes to make comments at this point, and we'll move through them as quickly as we can.
Would you like them to raise their Zoom hand then?
Yes, please.
Mr. Chair, nobody is raising their hand to speak right now.
Okay. I would think at this point, it's still early. We can take a recess and see if there's additional people that wish to testify. I don't know. There's a suggestion from staff on, again, I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but a suggestion of staff on the amount of time that we take for a recess and come back in and reconvene.
Commissioner Dyer, hearing nothing, I just, maybe just a suggestion, just a thought, maybe we recess until say like 1 o'clock or something like that. And, if somebody else now wants to come in, there may be some people who decided not to register, not to sign up, thinking that they would be way down on the list or something like that. That's just a thought that we could do that. But I'm open to lots of different suggestions on how we might want to handle this.
I do want to give opportunities for those that thought they would tune in later, because this was scheduled. And again, we had set aside time to take a lot more testimony. But of course, we set that time aside to be used as needed.
Commissioner Dyer, this is Danny.
Yes.
So we actually noticed the meeting to start at 9. We didn't notice it to go all day. We noticed it to take testimony as long as people were there to testify. So you can recess the meeting and re-adjourn if you would like. We did receive, copious amounts of written testimony already, which you noted that we had received some. We received, I think, more written testimony than we've received in oral testimony to this point. And the intention that when I noticed it, which it was noticed, is that if all speakers were done, that you would close the public hearing, but leave the record open for people to submit written testimony until Monday at 5. So if you're wanting to give people another opportunity, you could close and re-adjourn at 1 o'clock if that works for you all, or whatever time you would like. We can put that up on our website that we're doing that. And I think that we worked out a way for Alicia to be able to put a screensaver up that can say that we'll re-adjourn at 1. I'm not 100% positive we were able to make that work because this is new. But if the board would like, we could do the best we can to let people know you can re-adjourn at whatever time you would like. But it was noticed to end once the verbal oral testimony was received, and everyone was noticed that it would start at 9 a.m. and not noticed that it would go any longer than necessary.
Yes, I realize that. I personally, it's not even quite 10 o'clock. And even though it was noticed to start at 9, I'm sure there's people who maybe had other things happening. I would like to at least try again to reconvene at 1 o'clock if we don't have a large volume log of speakers ready to speak at that point. We can adjourn, and of course, we are still taking the written testimony. I'll ask the other two commissioners if that's something that they would be in favor of.
Yeah, I support reconvening at 1 and see if there is more verbal testimony at that time.
Okay.
We're kind of holding this during, if people are working, it's kind of all during working hours, so it's kind of tough.
Yeah, and that's why it is good that there's the written option, but I do want to hear as much in person as we can, or via Zoom. Commissioner Dotter, how's?
Yeah. Since I made the suggestion, yes, obviously I do agree with that.
You still agree with your own suggestion? Okay.
I agree with my suggestion.
Good.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, this is Danny again. I'm sorry, I can't get my video on right now, so I'm only on audio. But what I was going to suggest is possibly you might want to reconvene at noon, because typically noon to 1, a lot of people have a lunch break rather than 1 o'clock. That might be a better option.
Yeah. Okay.
So just a suggestion.
No, I think
I concur with that. That's a great idea.
All right, then let's recess the public hearing to reconvene at 12 o'clock, and we will reopen and hear testimony at that time. So in recess until noon.
I thought maybe something had changed. Good, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, I got in this time. Don't have that same stress level. I know it still has Colleen's name on it, but they're going to change that. Oh, they already did. Look at that.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, I actually was a little worried there that I wasn't quite sure how to get back. And of course, then we get those 55 emails and I'm thinking, am I really going to dig through these 55 emails to find that one? And so I just went and I did the smart thing. I went and grabbed Linda and said, help.
That is usually the correct solution.
It is. And if Alicia had been here, I would have grabbed her, but of course she was already downstairs running things.
Right. Well,
she and Casey. You guys haven't met Casey yet, have you?
Yeah. I did the other day. Okay. She's great.
Yeah, great to have her.
Okay, we're about a minute away from resuming here. And I suppose at noon is when we go live and YouTube fires up. Is that what I'm presuming to be correct?
Mr. Chair, the live stream is still going, so that the recess notice was up in case people tried to view that way.
I see. Great. Okay. Well, another minute here. Do we have people waiting to speak, Alicia?
A gentleman has raised his hand to speak, and we have had a couple people register to speak by phone, but they have not called in yet.
Great. Okay, so we have a few more.
And there's a couple people raising their hand. So if you would like, I can start bringing those who've raised their hand in.
Well, it is 12 o'clock, so we are going to resume the Board of Commissioners public hearing on the impacts and restrictions listed on the Oregon Health Authority Sector Risk Level Guidance Chart effective February 12th, 2021. I am going to, again, just to reiterate and remind.
Mr. Chair, can I interrupt you real quick? I just want to make sure we're recording. I don't see that showing as recording.
There it is.
I just now popped on. I don't know if we caught everything you just said, calling the meeting to order or not.
Okay, I'll repeat that just in case. It is a little after, or it's noon, and we are going to resume the Board of Commissioners public hearing February 25th, 2021 on the impacts of restrictions listed on the Oregon Health Authority Sector Risk Level Guidance Chart effective February 12th, 2021. And again, I'm going to reiterate some of the things that we need the speakers to do prior to their testimony. First of all, we need for you to give your name and address for the record, whether you support or opposed or neutral on the restrictions. There is a 2-minute time limit, and at 2 minutes, the feed will be cut. We need to do this to maintain, again, to be consistent for every speaker and allow them the same opportunity. At 15 seconds, you'll see me do this. That means it's time to wrap up because, again, we will cut it off at 2 minutes. If you are not able to get in all of your testimonies in the 2-minute time limit, written testimony will be accepted until 5 o'clock on Monday. And we ask that we keep the comments on topic and no personal attacks. With that being said, let's go ahead and bring in the next person that would like to speak.
Hi there. I'm Peter Sage. Oops, we try it this way.
There.
Am I on? My gosh, it actually does work. And I'll say that the prompts seem to get you to push the right buttons. I'm Peter Sage.
Sometimes it works, yes.
No, it's working great. Hey, I live at 305 Harvard Place in Medford, Oregon. And incredibly enough, 40 years ago, I was chairman of the Board of Commissioners. Ancient history. There were dinosaurs back then. Hey, I absolutely recognize that you must be inundated by people whose oxes are being gored by by the restrictions. Restaurants, the nice woman who's the wedding officiator person who'd called in, and they have a problem. They have a gripe. But I'm going to say, as someone who is now 71, married to someone about the same age, that I'm part of a cohort of people. There may be 15 or 20,000 of us who are 70 and older, who some of us have comorbidities of one kind or another. And because we're a diffuse group who don't really communicate with each other, it's harder for us to communicate our interest. The doctors say I have about a 2% chance of dying if I get the virus, even though I think I'm healthy, but I'm married to someone the same age in the same situation. That gets us up to 4%. And if I get it, she'll get it, or she gets it, I'll get it. It starts to add up. And yes, I attempt to avoid places where I will get infected. So the onus is on me. But there are places that I can't avoid it. So if people get together at a wedding or a restaurant or a bar or whatever and get together, they then go out into the community and put me at risk. And so I'm going to say, well, if 2% of the people over the age of 70 get it and die, what is that, 350, 400 people? Well, I'm one of those 350 or 400 people. And so I simply wanted to express my voice. If we can gut it out for another 60 days, most of us will have been vaccinated who want to be vaccinated. And then if things open up, it's sort of on me. But I'm not eligible yet to get vaccinated or haven't been scheduled. So I guess I'd say help keep me alive if you can.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Bob Robertson is calling in on the phone, and he is now given the ability to speak. He is muted, but he's able to speak.
Great. Thank you. That's my dog. Can you? That's not Bob. That's my dog.
This is Bob Robertson. Do you hear me?
Yes.
Pardon me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Before I get started for my 2 minutes,
Hey,
I think
Bob,
it's
can I?
totally.
I'm sorry. I just want you to give your address too. I know you've done this. It's a formality, but it's just for the record.
Bob Robertson, 1175 East Main Street, Medford, Oregon. I represent a number of business owners. But before I get started, and question, I represent 3 of the McGill restaurants. I represent Doug Newman Properties, has a number of restaurants and hotels. I represent a number of other Mexican restaurants. Does that mean I only get 2 minutes also?
Yeah. I'm sorry. It's 2 minutes per individual. I think a lot of people do represent more than just themselves. Of course, we'll take. Yeah, thank you for stopping the time. We will take your testimony written as long as, whatever length you choose to submit that. But as far as the oral testimony, we do need to limit it to 2 minutes per person.
Well, respectfully, Board of Commissioners, I think this hearing should be in your hearing hall at the courthouse, which the taxpayers have provided for, and we shouldn't have to call in like we're doing right now. It should be in person. You all should be there. We should have a open hearing where we can have time enough to discuss the problems that are confronting Jackson County. Could I start my 2 minutes now?
It started. Go ahead though. We'll.
Okay.
Would you like me to restart it?
Please just restart it at 1. Yeah, go ahead and restart it. I think we've kind of had some discussion that wasn't on his topic. Go ahead now, Bob. Your time is going.
Okay. I represent McGill Restaurants as the primary client, He has restaurants in Shady Cove, Eagle Point, and Gold Hill. And Mr. Miguel has been operating these restaurants very successfully until the last year or so, when he's been shut down most of the time. So he wants me to express to you the 25% allowance that the state has now come up with as a slap in the face to all of the restaurant owners and all of the businesses, because it just allows them to continue to lose money. You should exercise your power under the Home Rule Authority, which we've talked about and which I've sent you letters on, because of the 25% occupancy, or the right for the restaurants to operate for in a limited space. Most of them can't even operate in that space, and they're going to continue to lose money. And so the state is just guaranteeing total bankruptcy for all the restaurants and businesses that try to operate under those ridiculous rules. This is, again, an unconstitutional taking without compensation by the state, and the county can do something about it under the emergency rules that you have right to use under the Home Rule Ordinance. And you should do that, because this thing is going to get worse and worse and worse. All the people, the restaurants that I represent, half of their people are unemployed because they can't operate, and they will continue to be unemployed and not able to buy food or anything else. This is
like I say, please, the additional commentary can be sent to us up until 5 o'clock on Monday, but we do have to be consistent with the commentators on this hearing, or the people giving testimony. Hello, you're on.
Hi there. My name is Deborah Leff. I'm at 440 Green Bay Drive, Medford, Oregon. Commissioners, I just want to thank you so much for having this online and not risking our health unnecessarily with an indoor meeting with a bunch of strangers who have different protocols they're bothering to follow or not. I want to say that I really support all of the restrictions the governor has put in place, and in fact, I'd have made them stronger. I'm very dismayed at how many businesses I go into to just do basic, quick in and out business with a mask on, and I see employees that aren't masked or are masked improperly. If we had strict guidelines on exactly how this has to be, I would feel so much safer relaxing different things later, but we haven't even gotten strict yet. We've just gotten a lot of complaining, but we haven't gotten strict. So that's all I really want to say, and I feel very adamant about it. I'm not going into any businesses because they are not keeping me safe enough.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. You're still muted, but we'll give you a second here. There you are. Okay, you're up. Give your name and address for the record first, please.
My name is David Lane. I live at 964 Golden Aspen Place in Ashland. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address this extremely important issue today. I'm speaking not just to the three of you, but also to all of the people who are listening in on Zoom. I'd like to suggest that this meeting should be larger than just looking at the minutia of Governor Brown's sector risk level guidance chart. Boy, that's a bunch of a lot to put in your mouth. Rather, I would suggest it should be about a single question, namely, am I going to be part of the problem or am I going to be part of the solution? This disease is real. It has killed over 500,000 fellow Americans, and globally, 2.5 million people have succumbed to it. It would be nice if we could just hide our heads in the sand and wait for it to go away. But this virus and this pandemic are our enemies, and we cannot afford the luxury of trying to ignore them. Saying that the Titanic was unsinkable didn't stop it from sinking, and saying that the pandemic is a hoax won't make it go away. No one likes the restrictions on our personal lives, but we must put the need to win this war ahead of our personal desires. Supporting and following Governor Brown's science-based guidance is the surest and fastest way we can get back to our normal lives. I would urge everyone to choose to be part of the solution, putting aside our own personal needs and desires, and embrace the governor's guidance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Amy Rose is calling in, and she's now been given permission to speak.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Amy.
Good afternoon. Name and address, please, first, and we won't start your time until you have given that. So,
Okay, Amy Rose, Eagle Point, Oregon.
thank you.
So we've talked before. I just wanted to come on and let you know why my heart is of why you don't have an overpouring of people that want to speak today. I can second what Bob Robertson said. I promised myself after the last commissioner meeting that, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely, yes.
Okay. I promised myself after the last commissioner meeting I wouldn't attend anymore or lend any more time to this because I feel like this is just the way our tyrannical governor is meeting with us. She won't let Oregonians in and she's passing bills that are horrendous. And I'm really sad for the state of Oregon and have plans myself to move out as so many others are. So pretty soon, I guess, everyone will be left with what's here. But Bob has said, just the same as I, there's no reason we shouldn't be able to meet in person where you can see these businesses. You can go to Costco in hundreds. We're asking for a meeting in person where we can be masked, social distance, whatever you want us to do with the number of people that are allowed to attend the meeting. But this way doesn't seem right. We can't have any correspondence. We can have 2 minutes to speak. And it definitely does not feel like a constitutional type meeting that we would like. I myself represent over 200 businesses. We had our first business meeting over a month ago. We thought we'd have 50 businesses show up. We had 200 business owners. These are amazing businesses that want to stay operating and serve this community that are suffering. And I myself have visited them. I've taken them the signs from the sheriff. I've taken them flyers. And, I don't see you guys doing that. So I'm calling our commissioners. I know you don't just stay home all the time. So go visit the businesses, hear the stories, hear how the restaurant supply chain is going to be what falls. They can't.
Sorry again. Any additional testimony can be submitted in written form by 5 o'clock on Monday.
Mr. Chair, I currently have nobody raising their hand. There has been a couple, but they've gone away pretty quickly. Oh, there's one. One moment.
Are you there? Got a little.
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah. Name and address first for the record, and then go right into it.
All right, Luke Doyle, Murphy, Oregon. It's going to be 350 Hyde Park Road.
Great.
So, yeah, am I good to go?
Yes, you are.
So I just wanted to say that, you know, as a community, I think a lot of people feel pretty distant from the commissioners. Like there's not a lot of actual leadership going on for what the community has on their hearts and what they're struggling with. I think it feels kind of distant with the elected officials. So that's one thing that if there was anything you guys took from this, from us speaking, that you know, that's a feeling in the community. I think it's why a lot of people are leaving, is because we don't feel properly represented in a very Republican and conservative county in the state of Oregon. We feel very distant. I think that's why there's state of Jefferson movements and things of such that make people want to actually be represented. And I would also just like to say that I feel the masks and the social distancing makes people feel even more distant from our community. And there's things that are worse than getting sick. And I think that a lot of people are pretty tired of feeling distant. And, you know, social distancing isn't very social. And so I feel like if there were anything you guys took from this, maybe it would be to try and connect a little better as leaders in your county, to connect a little better with people on the ground floor who are actually owning businesses, dealing with them being shut down, dealing with loss of revenue from less people being allowed to enter those businesses, and recognize that, you know, as far as health goes, there's people who commit suicide, who get on drugs, who have alcohol abuse, where there's domestic violence in the home. There's a lot of other things going on aside from a virus. And so those things should be taken into account when you're making regulations on lockdowns.
15 seconds.
And that's basically all I had to say. I hope you guys know that the public matters. And I hope that you as elected officials can do something about it.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Hello, Daryl Griggs, Medford, Oregon. I don't have a good way to fix it. I don't have ideas to fix it. I'm a business owner. This sucks. But my concern really jumps into when we're talking about our kids, and we're not seeing enough being done to safeguard them and their mental health. And I really wanted to just make sure I was on record as saying we don't see enough of them being able to socialize even in a safe manner. And we're losing them because of it. And I don't feel like we're talking enough about those kind of things. I lost a couple of friends last year through depression with COVID. And I think it really needs to be said. Things are happening, even with those being safe. My wife works in the medical field, and she's 100% behind this. I'm a business owner, so I'm stuck somewhere in the middle because I want my clientele to be safe. But at the same token, I would still like to provide for my family. So I don't know where the happy medium is, but I do know beyond everything else, our children are hurting, our parents that are at home with the children, even though the schools are opening partially, it's still a struggle. And I feel like we need to have more eyes on those things that are going on, as well as everything else that you guys are struggling with and fighting through. Wasn't planning on speaking. I just feel like I wasn't seeing enough being said for our youth, for our families, in our community. I love my community. I don't plan on leaving my community. I've been fully supported here. And I appreciate you guys for what it is that you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, Jim Rhonda is calling in on the phone and has been given permission to speak.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi, Jim.
There we go.
name and address first, and
It
we'll
took,
start your
it took
time
me
out.
3 unmutes. Jim Rhonda, 953 Medford Center, Medford, Oregon.
Thank you. Go ahead. You're on.
Okay. I am a business owner. I own Punky's Diner and Pies. And we have, after 8 amazingly successful years, suffered one of the most devastating periods of time in all of the 75 years that my wife and I have lived, due to government regulations and overreach. I have never seen or witnessed anything remotely like this. And I can't figure out why we're still in this fix a year later with the same people saying the same things, or worse yet, changing what they're saying. We don't know what to do. We can open 25% here, and basically what that means is I can have 23 and a half people in my restaurant, and then we got to take away our staff, and I need 5 or 6 people minimum to take care of that many people, and now I can only have 18 people or 17 people. That's ridiculous. And we're going to do that because we don't have any choice, because our customers are chomping at the bit to come in here. But this is life ending, and way more of this is going on than there are people dying. And I realize we got 8,000 people in Jackson County that have COVID, but guess what? We have 220,000 people, or something less than 8,000, that don't have COVID. So where's the justification for being in this kind of lockdown? It doesn't make any sense to us. And we have employees that will never come back.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon. Name and address first, and we'll get your time started.
My name is David Reese. I'm in Medford, Oregon.
Okay. You're on.
All right. My first 2 thoughts are that the mental health implications of the lockdowns are very important to consider. And it seems that we are only focusing on the physical health in this situation. And if you've never seen a 2-year-old express suicidal thoughts, it's a scary thing to watch. We've watched this with our 2-year-old through the last year, and they are all due to the effect of the lockdowns and the things that have been taken away from her, from being able to go to the kids museum to being in parks over the last summer and through the fall. The last thing I'd like to say is that it's not our job to pad the fears of those who are concerned about getting a disease. And it is not why we elected you as our county commissioners to do that as well. The data doesn't warrant the lockdowns for the masses when the micro minority are those who are at risk. As a private citizen, I'm concerned with the direction that Jackson County is headed with the current climate of a state of emergency in the state and nation. If we look at how mild of a reason we succumbed to these regulations, it is difficult to see how we will ever end the restrictions. It is concerning to me that our leadership is unwilling to push back against Kate Brown's edicts and mandates to support local businesses and subsequently the families of Jackson County. The confusing part for the citizens of Medford and Jackson County and beyond is the difference in responses to COVID-19 across the state and country. No one asked us how we would like to respond as a community. We have just been issued mandates and have been told to step in line without explanation. When we have questioned the reasoning, we are told that we are insensitive and not following the science. This is concerning, as we the people are not in agreement with the way our leadership is handling the lockdowns, and we feel supported by our elected officials. If we are to trust our elected officials, we must know that all voices are being heard, not just those who live in fear.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, it's Commissioners. It's Jason Schaefer in Ashland, Oregon, 1467 Siskiyou, and I'd like to begin by saying, before the Board of Commissioners make any decisions on behalf of their constituents who employ you, the commissioners need to answer the following common sense questions. One, how does an airborne virus know when a person is eating or walking through a grocery store? Two, what scientific data shows there's a correlation between a bakery closing and a big box store staying open with the spread of the virus? Three, how does virus know when there's a 25% capacity in a restaurant as opposed to 100% capacity? In addition to that, other questions, the expert science have proven that the masks are harmful. They cause cancer, they kill brain cells, etc. Why isn't OHS or OSHA having a public forum where they can debate the experts and prove the science on both ends? It's called informed consent, and therefore the constituents can choose on their own. How come that's not being displayed, and how come the commissioners are not allowing that? In addition to that, the Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Marbury versus Madison says 1803 that any law repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. Therefore, emergency ORS 401, which depletes somebody's livelihood, is a null and void law. So how is it that the commissioners who swore an oath to uphold this Constitution are allowing unlawful edicts to take place? Because are they aware that they will be held in treason and can be held in private capacity for allowing crimes to be committed in their county? In addition to that, OHS and OSHA have a private policy that says they have to create safe working environments and have no authority over the merchant-client relationship, and masks have been proven to cause harm to employees. So they're violating their own oath, their own law. So how are the commissioners allowing that?
Hi, you guys. Good morning.
Good afternoon. Name and address first, then we'll start your time, please.
Yes, Annie Stack, Central Point, Oregon. I want to get on today quickly. I know that time is precious, and I want to thank you for being present with us today. And I just want to acknowledge a couple of things that are important for us this morning. One, it sort of feels like we're the squeaky wheels, right? These same faces on these calls week after week. And I just want to really speak into that really we're in a place. I know I can speak for my husband and I and our business that we are no longer interested in sitting back and complaining about the things that we don't like or that we're disappointed with inside of our county. And so we really are hard after action, which is why we're here. And we're continually speaking into the panel and into the voices of our commissioners. And so it really isn't a heart to like make life miserable for you guys. It's really to say we're with you. We are tired of complaining, and I refuse to be the masses and sit back and not do something with the voice that we've been given. So that's the first thing. Second thing is I want to acknowledge very intentionally, there has been some hard call outs with the commissioners in the last several months. And I specifically want to speak to Colleen. I shook your hand and met you personally in my business. And I need you to know that that meant the world to me. That your presence was there and seen was very important to me and to my family. And that that long-standing action meant a lot and felt very much like you were on our team. And then the second thing I wanted to speak in against was, Rick, I want to thank you for your correspondence this week. It's very easy to sit back and judge what is happening or isn't happening, and we're not sitting in your desk. By no means am I not going to hold you to the fire, but I do want to acknowledge that you have done your part in submitting information that is helpful to us and to our families and to our businesses. And so I just want to encourage you guys on that. Like, we see you and we hear you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, good afternoon, Commissioners. Gunter Ambron, Ivy Drive in Cave Junction. I too was not going to come on, but I've been listening to everything. But, I really support, we have a lot of, a very substantial elderly community in the neighborhood where I live here. And a lot of people are afraid, of course, about the COVID issue. But the main thing I wanted to share is that we really need to be engaged in a forensic investigation, because there is a whole lot of science and a lot of doctors and professionals that are pushing up against the official, quote unquote, official narrative, and the legacy media, CBS, ABC, NBC, all of those that are, take all of this political stuff that is going on between the Democrats and the Republicans, and it's very challenging. What we really need is a cost versus benefit analysis. Have a deep analysis on this issue going on. So I commend what you're doing. I know you guys are doing all that you can with the parameters, with the box that you're given as far as legally goes, but there is the parameter of law itself, which is there is like the people that have been talking about the constitutional issues. There is substantial issues along with that. So anyway, I wish you well. Have a great afternoon, and thank you for hosting this. And I'll look forward to bringing more information to you at a later date. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Name and address first, and then we'll start your time, please.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Sam Rosenbaum. I'm speaking on behalf of the Southern Oregon Spartans junior hockey team in Medford, Oregon. On behalf of Dylan and Bree Martin, who are the owners as well, we are supportive of the efforts that Governor Brown and other state officials have made in order to limit the spread of COVID-19 within the state. However, we feel that by limiting youth athletics so severely within the state, additional problems are arising. Many families have chosen to leave the state altogether, while others are regularly traveling to neighboring or even further states in order for their children to compete. This not only affects the economy of Oregon, but it also interrupts the progress these youth athletes have made in getting scholarships or moving to professional levels of their sport. It introduces those traveling families to citizens of states that have far fewer COVID safety precautions in place as well. More responsiveness from state officials would also be appreciated for organizations and supporting facilities that have worked hard to put safety precautions in place in order to mitigate the spread of COVID while allowing for some semblance of normal seasons. When an organization and facility have taken time to write these safety plans, including a regular testing schedule for their athletes, in addition to the ability to quarantine athletes, it's very frustrating to be told that we do not have any plans to modify the restriction on contact sports at this time, which was the response we received in October 2020. So with those in mind, we're definitely supportive of what's going on, but hopeful for a change as well. And thank you guys very much for listening.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, it appears that Mr. Anderson is not unmuting, so I can remove him and see if there's anybody else who would still like to speak.
Okay, we'll give him another opportunity to try to unmute and be heard.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting, is it
Yes.
possible to give the number? If people are watching by YouTube and would like to call in, is it possible to provide that number through this meeting for them?
Sure, yes. Do you have that handy, Alicia?
Certainly, just give me one moment and I'll pull it up.
Okay.
Thank you.
In fact, we can listen to Miss Dayton while you're looking for that, and then you can give it afterwards if you'd like.
Whichever you would prefer, I've got it up right now.
Okay, go ahead and give that, please.
Okay. Oh. And I apologize. I thought I did here. I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and allow her to speak first. I
Thank
thought
you.
I had it.
Thank you. No problem, either way. Good afternoon.
Hi there. Good afternoon. My name is Chantel Dayton, and I am at 943 Automation Way in Medford. I wrote something down and I even wrote my name down just so that I wouldn't forget it, because I tend to get a little nervous. But I really do thank you for taking the time to listen. This is actually my first time in on one of these meetings. And so I do appreciate you taking the time, both positive and negative, to listen to both sides of this. I am going to just read something that I wrote down. It is truly from my heart. But I own a small gym here in Medford. I've been in Medford my whole life, and I love it here. So owning a gym, we believe in all around fitness. And so all around fitness that our business provides, both mentally and physically. For mothers, we are an all women's gym. And so we work with a lot of moms, a lot of women. And so from the beginning, we have given them the choice to come into the gym with or without a mask. We have our doors open, and we have always said that from the beginning, my business partner and I, that we would not be lying or hiding. I feel as if there is I'm just going to read what I wrote. We are honorable women who are struggling to stand by the decisions that our leaders are making at this time. The mask mandates and mandatory closures have brought division amongst us as a community and have left business owners in a difficult position. Businesses are dropping like flies, accumulating debt while waiting for something to happen, for changes to be made, and to bring life back into the small business community. Limiting capacity, mask mandates, and mandatory closures have left us feeling we have no choice but defy the orders of our leaders. I feel as many people are relying on the resiliency of small businesses. I just want to take this time to speak life over the community and tell you that we are resilient. We are making things work. We are being innovative and doing things we never thought we ever would or could. The small business community will not die. I ask you to please stand up and figure something.
And again, if there was additional testimony that can be submitted in writing, it sounds like she was wrapping that up, though. But thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I have the phone number and the ID that's required if you'd like.
Okay, please.
So the phone number is area code 253-215-8782. And it is webinar ID 957-7135-9061. And if people would like to provide comment by phone, if they're able to either call our office main line or email in, just so I know what the phone number is if they're calling in. That would be
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another individual with trouble with muting or unmuting, I see.
Yeah, it appears so. I can try the other gentleman again if you'd like.
Please, well, yeah, we'll give them both another opportunity before we give up. There we are.
Hey there, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, great.
Sorry, I actually wasn't planning on speaking. I'm not sure why I was being asked to, but I'm going to go for it anyway. I don't really have a lot to say. I'm Lee Anderson. I'm on Barneberg, North Barneberg in Medford. And the only thing I have to say is my opinion is across the board, the cure is worse than the disease. And it's killing everybody, and I'm in complete opposition of it. And I wish everyone would reconsider before it's too late. That's it.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hello, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize I'd be speaking. Okay. Erin Brender, 226 Valley View Drive, Medford. Thank you for taking my call, I guess. I'm a physician here in town, and I've seen firsthand, I'm a frontline worker. I have not had a day off since March 8th. And I've seen COVID in all what I'm deeming COVID collateral. My husband, we are small business as well. So I've seen the effect of the community. I think we are all in a tough situation. I guess what I'd like to say is that an understanding that the medical community feels, our pain of our community, and with the fires as well. And we too have suffered not being able to financially and economically, socially. But what I'd like to say is that overall, I think we need to work within the confines and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. I've been on my days off mixing vaccines because I want us out of this situation. And we're so close to being there that instead of throwing out these guidelines and not listening, that we continue to work within and fight for what we need as our own community. And I think that's important because we know what we need here in Southern Oregon. And we also have a voice, and to ensure that we have adequate vaccine, that we have our guidelines in place. Unfortunately, we can't opt out of masks like a surgeon can't opt out of masks in an OR. It's just not the way it works. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chair, at this point, the members that are being brought in have registered, and it indicated that they were speaking in favor or opposed. So just wanted to let you know.
Thank you. So we do have additional speakers waiting.
Oh, we have someone raising their hand. And at this point, it might be best if they raise their hand to speak.
Okay,
But we are
please
bringing
do.
one in.
Please raise your Zoom hand if you'd like to speak, and we'll get you in. Hello.
Hi there. So my name is Emily Grimes. I live in Jacksonville, Oregon. I own Rogue Jet Boat Adventures in Central Point under the Table Rocks. We're a 100% outdoor business. I struggle as a business owner with how I'm expected to enforce social distancing and the mask wearing when I feel like it's encroaching on individual rights. So how, I can do everything I possibly can to adhere to all the regulations, have all the signs posted, be the best example I can. But how am I supposed to enforce it when, who am I supposed to call? I can't call the police because they don't enforce it, which I wouldn't call them anyways. I don't think they should enforce it. But I mean, I can do the best I can to adhere to everything. And yet someone can flex their rights and the OLCC can come in and immediately suspend me, with no previous communication, no history, anything with that. And it has nothing to do with liquor, nothing to do with alcohol. So that's just kind of what I've been dealing with. And then the other thing related, not related to my business is just mental health. I just believe it's just bankrupt right now. My 14-year-old nephew committed suicide 4 months ago, and it was directly related to isolation. And I just think that getting the youth back to something that looks somewhat normal to them, that their lives depend on it. And I think that there's more young lives at risk right now than the current risk of the older age, the high risk group. There's more of a risk. And so I don't have any blanket answers. I don't know if there are any, but I just hope that the youth are looked at first because they're our future. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, at this point, I believe we have covered everyone who's registered to speak in favor or opposed to these restrictions. So if anyone else would like to raise their hand, I could bring them in.
Okay, we'll give a moment for folks to do that.
I'm not seeing any hands raised at this time, Mr. Chair.
Okay, then I believe at this point, we will close the public hearing. And the commissioners will deliberate. I first want to say thank you to every individual who spoke. I know it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. People were very respectful and I think gave us a lot of great information we've heard, some we haven't. Again, I think it's important for us to point out that we are not the policymakers. We're not the governing body that determines these restrictions and how they're imposed and in what manner. But what we are your representatives, and I understand the feeling of being abandoned or that you're not being represented because we don't have that direct ability to change policy or to form policy. But what we are trying to do, and we have tried to do from the very beginning, is to get the input from our constituency and use that to advocate for, like we've been saying, balanced policy that considers all the interests at stake. And there are, again, public health. The governor at one of the last meetings, I said, we need to balance public health and economic determinative factors. Well, that's true. We need to balance when we make policy, we need to balance any burden that that policy creates with the benefit that we hope that it accomplishes. And that's what we've been fighting for at this particular point. I think that we need some balancing. We have, again, written letters, and we have advocated for specific steps to be taken to reach a balance. And that is something that will continue. And we always encourage additional input, additional comments, whether that's email, whether that's phone calls, or even asking for in-person meetings. I don't think any of the commissioners will say, we don't want to hear from you, or we will not. In fact, I know that's not the case.
Mr.
And
Chair?
again, yes.
Just a point of order, with us leaving the record open till Monday at 5, won't we deliberate after we get all the input?
I imagine we'll probably deliberate again. I think we have the opportunity, based on the testimony we've heard here as well. We're not actually coming to a decision, I don't believe, based on this testimony. I think to discuss what we've heard and the actions that we have taken and continue to intend to take in the future. Mr. Jordan, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we did notice that you can deliberate here, but there's nothing that prohibits us from noticing at your future work session or study session that you want to deliberate further about the results of the public hearing or what actions you may want to take. So you don't have to take an action today. You can deliberate about it, and we can, notice it at a future date as well. And also, I do want to let you know, as you've been hearing testimony today, you have had additional written comment come in. So I'm certain the board will want to review the written comment as well prior to being fully being done deliberating this issue. But you can deliberate, adjourn this meeting, and we can notice it for a public meeting for further discussion anytime the board would like.
Thank you.
So thank you, Danny. Rick, I completely agree with that, because if you've noticed, we've gotten it appears to be almost 100 written comments coming in. Of course, we haven't had a chance to look at those, and so I would prefer not to deliberate just on the oral testimony that we received here. Yeah, and
sure.
And I do want to say one thing. I want to thank the staff, and also Rick, I want to thank you for the way you ran this. I was in on a public hearing last night, and those folks let people go way over their time and get way off track and everything like that. And I will tell you, by the time it got to those last people and everything, it was really I think it was very unfair to them. But I want to commend you for adhering to the rules. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think the tendency is always that you want to let people talk for as long and about whatever they'd like to, but there do need to be parameters, and we need to stick to those. So it's not always comfortable, but it's what we need to do. And Commissioner Roberts, again, this is not deliberation, but any takeaways, any message you'd like to give before we adjourn the meeting?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I do appreciate everybody, the written testimony, the oral testimony. I think it's important. That's why we're reaching out, is to get all voices. And that's who we represent, is all the voices, and to do the best, make the best decision if there's one to be made after we analyze everything. As a business owner, I completely sympathize with the businesses that are feeling the enforcement struggle and the staying viable in our economy here. And as an older person, the risk of getting sick is real. I don't think any of us are denying COVID isn't real. We're just trying to evaluate our concern over the measures that have been taken and changed. I mean, the sidebars have been changed over and over again through this year of dealing with this, and the frustration that is, as we, science doesn't have that mobile sidebar. Science is science, and this hasn't had that appearance. It changes every time the governor makes a new recommendation, and that's been our frustration, I think, for sure. So I look forward to seeing the rest of the written comment. And if people didn't have enough time to speak, which 2 minutes is hardly enough time to get your name out, but I appreciate you letting them do their name and address and then starting the timer. But to send the rest of those comments in, they're very important to us. We're going to, as we did in the other hearing we've had, we transcribe them. We have an audio tape. I mean, a lot of information to pass on our voice of Southern Oregon to Salem. And it really helps our message and helps us a lot. So thank you.
Thank you. Dave, any last thoughts?
I don't have anything to add other than what you've said, but to say here, thank you very much. Those are great. But I do say that one thing I did write down here that was really important to me was when somebody reminded me about cost benefit analysis. And that's exactly where we are. And so it's an interesting, we need to just keep that in mind. And sometimes we let that go away. But that's what you've been talking about. That's what a lot of people were talking about today. And that's wonderful.
Yeah. Cost benefit analysis is a constantly evolving equation too. The data, the information, the circumstances and situations change over time, and it's important to reevaluate policy based on new data, based on new information, and based on emerging situations, such as right now, we're fortunately are vaccinating a certain percentage of the very vulnerable populations that represented a much larger percentage of the severe illnesses, the hospitalizations and the deaths. And I think that data, as we've discussed, needs to be considered. And when you, again, constantly reevaluate policy, especially policy that has such dramatic impacts on people, that it's not a, let's make a policy and 6 months later, let's see if it's still working. It's a daily reevaluation that needs to be performed. And I think, hearing the impacts and the stories from people, that helps us with knowing what the data is, what the information is that needs to be considered when making balanced policy. And that's, I think, our goals. And I think that's what we've always strived to advocate for, and we will continue. Mr. Jordan, do you have any final thoughts?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to remind people who may be watching this or who are in attendance that we did post our legal counsel's memo regarding the questions about our home rule charter and the board's ability to act under the home rule charter to address the governor's restrictions. And also, we posted on that same website communications the board has made with the governor and legislators and all sorts of people around most of the issues that were brought to your attention today. I actually was trying to keep note about all of the things people said and whether or not it had been something you addressed. And I really don't believe there's anything that was mentioned today that you actually haven't taken some action on officially as a board. I just think people aren't necessarily aware of it. So those letters are posted at our website. They actually only include letters where the board's taken formal action. What the public may not be aware of is individually and in communication through your staff meetings or work session, individual commissioners have done additional footwork over and above those letters that we posted. But I think it's really important for the public, for those people that have questions about your authority and the governor's authority and the home use of the home rule charter, the legal memo is there. Please take a look and read it. And for those people that have said you have done nothing or not sprung into action, there's lots of indication of things you have done to address their concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And as far as the actions we've taken personally, of course, we can't post those on the county website. They weren't official county business, but I would be happy to share with anybody who cares to see the additional actions that have been taken, the additional efforts that have been made. I'd be happy to show them at any time, or share with them. Some of them have taken place in personal meetings, and it was conversations, not necessarily written correspondence. But again, I do appreciate the folks who gave testimony, the folks who watched or will watch. This is going to be archived. And thank you to the commissioners. I know this is something that we all care deeply about, and we will continue to represent our constituents the very best we can. So
Thank you, Rick.
with that, we will adjourn this meeting.